There's a verse in the Quran. It says, and when we recite the Quran, we always say, "In the name of God, the most merciful, the most gracious." Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُم. And it says sometimes you hate things happening to you, but you will learn that is ultimately for your good. And it's really hard to understand that, as a youngster growing up in Iraq. I was like, when bad things happens to you, you don't understand. How could that be good for me? And as someone who has always had a loving relationship with God, without any definition of what God means or what and how. I grew up with a mother who told me, don't see God as one thing, see God as everything. See God in the flowers, see God in the sand, see God in the trees, see God in the air. And so that love for God is always very present since my childhood, as God as the everything. And when things happened to me, when I was raped or violated and displaced and taken away from my family, and when I witnessed my country raptured and destroyed, and when I then end up working in war zones, I founded Women for Women International that works in war zones, and I see the awful acts of inhumanity. I did not understand that Quranic verse. How could God that's supposed to stand for love and justice and fairness, how could God says some things, you may think sometimes things bad happen to you, but they're ultimately for your good. I did not understand that. And, and I think when we love God, we have a relationship with God. And at least for me, that relationship was loving. And then when I encountered all the bad things in my life, or I witnessed all the bad things that in humanity that I witnessed, I was angry. I was angry at God, and I did not, and I was mad, and I was like, did not speak to God for a while, because how could that happen? How could that happen? I don't understand. And then I encountered a Rumi poem, and Rumi is a 13th century Sufi poet. And Sufis, as I'm sure most of you know, believe that the connection is directly with God, and that we are each as humans are to empty ourselves from all the things that, all the muddy stuff, to clear ourselves so that God can whisper through us, and so we can become the flute that God can make music through us. So that's what Sufi says. It's like, how do you empty yourself? Ramadan today is about a process where we do not have food, or the distraction of life gets in the way. So it's a month where you do not eat from sunrise to sunset, drink from sunrise to sunset, but nor smoke or gossip or do any mean things to anybody, in a month of purity. So you may allow for God, the space for God to whisper through you, to make music through you. And so I hear this Rumi poem, and he says, it's called The Guest House. And it says, this being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thoughts, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So how can we transfer these pain and despair, the loss of loved ones, the injustices, the burning of our homes, the killing of our people, the raping of the women, the pillaging? How can we transfer this emotions, the anger, the rage, into a state where Rumi is saying, be grateful to whatever comes, or what the Quran says it may be good for you. Ultimately, you'll learn that it will be good for you. How could we transfer that? Well, I have come to learn not to judge emotions. A lot of people process different emotions in different ways. We're now going through, some people are suffering from anxiety or loneliness or depression or rage or anger or despair and all of these emotions. And I used to be afraid of these emotions. And then at one point I decided to actually let each emotion be in, fully in. Let me embrace each emotion. Let me embrace the rage. Let me embrace the loneliness. Let me embrace the despair and the anger and the pain. And let me embrace all of that. Let me embrace the joy and the love. And the switch of in my mindset about emotions was, before, you're afraid of these emotions. So and you judge them. And when I decided to embrace them, whatever emotion it is, I became a student of that emotion. In other words, sort of like, oh, so that's what loneliness means. When you let yourself be lonely, or when you let yourself be in despair or anxious or rage or anger or loving or joyful. Oh, so that's what it means. It becomes like a book that I study, all its corners, all its pages. And eventually I learned to get out of it once you studied it, like any other book, and it becomes a book in the shelf of my library. And one day when I meet someone else, I look at these, I understand the emotion in myself rather than judge their emotions. So then again, how do we move the emotions from the pain to the gratitude, from the pain to understanding, actually, this could be good for us. And here's the thing about emotions. I learned that when I make it me, then I'm not growing. But when I make it a study of the emotions, then I am growing. So the goal here is not to always be in a state of love, or always to be in a state of anger, or always be in a state of joy, or always be in a state of despair. The goal here is to actually move in all the emotions. Again, I quote Rumi, and in the poem he says, when the hands is always open, or the hands is always closed, and there is no movement. Basically, if it were always a fist or always stretched open, you would be paralyzed. Your deepest presence is in every contracting and expanding, the two as beautifully balanced and coordinated as bird wings. So the goal here is not to stay in one emotion, but to expand it and contract it and understand the meaning of each one of it. Again, how does someone like me, who have witnessed women's breasts being cut, witness women being raped in front of the whole village, witness my home country destroyed and millions of people killed, witness mothers after mothers raped and pillaged and burnt, witness the demonization of my people as I witness demonization of other people? How could I transfer that rage at injustice into a sense of gratitude and trusting, most importantly, trusting life? So I was working in one of the war zones. I worked in war zones for 25 years in my life. And that's when you witness the worst acts of humanity. And I entered in Bosnia a Sufi shrine. And in the Sufi shrine, they were written in the corners of the room, the 99 names of God in Islam. So God in Islam is neither birth nor born, does not have a child or a parent. God is the all, and God has 99 names. And it was my first time, even though I grew up a Muslim, it was my first time to realize that something about these names is contradicting to each other. God, for example, is the all forgiving, and God is the all dominating. God is the giver, and God is the taker. God is the merciful, and God is the punisher. It is the contrasting of all of these emotions. And God, the 100th name, is in the all, So again, how does one reconcile this emotion within ourselves? Reconcile the contrast in God, the injustice about this world, into a sense of understanding, wow, this is actually have evolved me into something else. Well, I can only tell you about the moments of my own reconciliation. And it came always through heartbreaks. And the heartbreaks first was personal. As I told you, been through a lot of displacement from my country. I was, in an arranged marriage, abused marriage, I was raped, all of these things. Then the heartbreaks was at witnessing at the injustice of humanity. Then the heartbreaks was at the witnessing the demonization of so many people, not only Muslims, but as we are right now, indigenous people, African American people, all people who are marginalized over centuries and generations. And that made me angry and rage, still is. And then I died. I died. And in these, in all of these heartbreaks, I mean, I died. I literally died. I actually had a health crisis in which life ceased to me. And in these heartbreaks, there are pauses in life. Everything stops. As my teacher, Angela's Arian, a Basque shaman, who says, everything about life is slow to medium. The rhythm of life is slow to medium. But us humans move so fast that we stop noticing the rhythm of life. And in the pauses of life, and in my case, that sometimes it forces itself on me. Obviously, we don't choose bad things to happen to us. In these pauses of life, you sort of slow down into the rhythm of life, slow to medium. And in that slow to medium rhythm, I can only tell you what I have come to learn is that I have heard Earth's heartbeat. Is I had come to witness, as we all have come to witness in the last year, spring's arrival slowly after winter. Is I have come to learn the goodness of humanity despite all. I have come to learn that truth does come out. The Nat Turner's people of the world, the Nat Turner story of the world does come out full circle and shows the justice of it and the injustices of it. What happened to indigenous people and their wisdom and the pure and the knowledge they have, from being demonized to executed to now honored as the right thing that we all need to do for this earth, does come out. I have come to learn that ultimately truth does come out. I have come to learn to trust in the goodness of humanity, because in these pauses, love does emerge, and people do, and there are good people who do emerge, and community and family and friends do show up. And then that spring always emerges after every winter. And that in these pauses, I have allowed for me to arrive to my heart center. And that is where I found God. That is where I found God. And so I have reached a point. They say there's a age, something about age. In my 50s, I don't know, maybe it is true. I have reached a point, I can tell you, that I am so grateful for every pain I have encountered in my life, for the dictator that ravaged my country, for the wars I have encountered, for the injustice and the gossip and the betrayals and the backstabbing. I have come to be so grateful for all of that line that hurt me, of people and of circumstances, because they have each made me who I am. Each made me who I am, a woman who has learned to arrive to her heart center and find God within, and to trust life. So how grateful I am for all of life, and how trusting I have arrived to become, that justice shall triumph, and hope and love is always ultimately going to be bigger than all. Ultimately is going to be bigger than all. And with that, I thank you for allowing me to share what I have come to learn in my life experience, and to honor and share with you the celebration of Ramadan this month, a month that allows us to empty ourselves from the distractions of our lives and to be back, allow the space to arrive to our heart center. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Lewis, for allowing me that space.